Thanks everyone for coming to Disability and Resistance after the election. My name's Ewan. I'm an activist up in Glasgow with groups like Disabled People Against Cuts. It's a very exciting panel that we've got today. I'll introduce the speakers before they speak, and I'll just let you enjoy. Our first speaker is Paula Peters, leading member of Disabled People Against Cuts, also part of Mental Health Resistance Network and trustee for Southwark Association for Mental Health.
Well, comrades, what a Marxism you're having so far. Thank you for the invitation to speak to you all today. And Disabled People Against Cuts sends solidarity and hopes you're having a great festival. Now, I'd like to begin by taking this opportunity to thank everyone for their support over the last 3 years for our DPAC's Independent Living Fund campaign. For the fight for independent living, the campaign has seen disabled people take the government to court at the Royal Courts of Justice twice. We won once. And we've lobbied MPs for the last 3 years. We've had a 25,000 strong signed 38 Degrees petition, which was handed in to Downing Street on the 30th of June. A pantomime horse called Schimmel lead the charge to Parliament at the closing ceremony of the ILF just over a week ago. And we have held up buses in all weathers around Parliament and Westminster for the fight for the ILF. And as one tweet said just very recently, if you want a bus held up in emergency, call on DPAC, because we're the ones to hold them up. And in June 2014, we ramped up the pressure around our campaign, and we occupied Westminster Abbey grounds on the 29th of June, and 65 disabled activists, ILF users and supporters, we faced down 350 police officers, many of whom were armed, and we held that space for 6 hours and we didn't give them an inch. And we actually got a mention from the pyramid stage at Glastonbury. And then, on the 24th of June, during Parliament PM's questions, 40 disabled activists and their supporters took the fight for independent living directly to the heart of Parliament and occupied the lobby area just outside the House of Commons chamber doors. And 2 of my disabled brothers, and one of them sitting to me on my left here, had their hands actually on the House of Commons chamber doors and were a hair's breadth away from actually getting in to the actual chamber. Disabled activists then faced down 50 police officers, many of whom the police officers were aggressive and manhandled disabled people in wheelchairs. But you know something? Not one of them gave an inch to those police officers, and we actually disrupted the daily politics show because the BBC presenter held up and saved the ILF card and said, oh, there's a protest going on here. So David Cameron was boring. It was us who were leading the news that day. But shortly thereafter, and with a glint in our eyes, and the police were lined outside, we decided, occupation of Parliament just isn't enough. So we held a rolling roadblock from Parliament all the way down to Downing Street. We held up buses for the fight for our rights, saying no to disability cuts. So I say to all of you today that the fight for independent living will never be over. The fight has only just begun. We have seen with the fight DPAC has mounted against David Cameron these past 5 years that with our direct actions we have empowered disabled people to join in our actions and our campaigns. But most importantly, in these horrendous times of savage cuts and ideological policy and the horrendous rhetoric they've used against us, we have given disabled people across the country and on the internet, by the actions we have taken, hope. Hope that we've been able to do something and mount the fight back against this Tory government, resist them and hit them back with our actions. And DPAC are not afraid to take the fight directly to government and give it everything we have. And we should also remember this: when we're feeling despondent, depressed and want to give up and think everything is hopeless, that after 4 years of hard campaigning, protests outside assessment centres were at us in all weathers, and the prolific research DPAC did in exposing Atos and the appalling reputation they have, that we did drive Atos out of the work capability assessment. We did get rid of them. You know, I'm sure you've heard, DPAC has done some creative actions. Going to our Ian Duncan Smith's house in 2013, we had a picnic on his driveway with Disney tents. Slapping an eviction notice on his door in the fight against the bedroom tax. Taking a washing line of underpants down to Ian Duncan Smith's constituency in Chingford just before the general election. And we leafleted around Chingford and we halved his majority after the general election. And on Wednesday, we had a Balls to the Budget event in response to George Osborne's budget and the 12 billion welfare cuts. And we blocked Westminster Bridge and Parliament with a 21-metre long banner which said Balls to the Budget and a big two fingers up to George Osborne, which was directly outside Parliament, and you could see it from space probably, it was that big. And we caused traffic chaos for over 2 hours, and 4 of our brothers actually got arrested for the fight for our rights. So we had the police in riot gear and on horseback facing us down in our wheelchairs, but we didn't give them an inch. We had a hell of a lot of fun, and John McDonnell actually come down to the police station with us to welcome our brothers back out when they were released, so which we gave a big thanks to John McDonnell. And then before the general election, we went up to Wirral West with Wirral TUC with the Sack Esther McVeigh campaign, and I'm sure you all remember her. So we wore our blonde wigs and our Esther McVeigh face masks, and we went round Wirral West and we stuck Sack Esther McVeigh stickers and all our Vote Esther McVeigh placards. And some good news out of this election: she lost. She's no longer an MP. Now, we have more work to do, but what we must do now is build our resistance on the ground and in our local communities, and build our local groups with street stalls, petitions and leaflets. Make our campaigns as inclusive as possible online as well, so that all disabled people's voices are heard. And we want to empower disabled people to join in however they feel comfortable, build the resistance right out across the country and hit the government back. However, I also feel it's important and really vital that we reach out to disabled people in our communities who are feeling isolated and scared, who've not heard of our campaigns, how the cuts are impacting on them, and what they can do to fight for their rights and how we can support them to do that. You know, living in Bromley and as chair of Bromley DPAC, I've supported Bromley Unite striking workers in their fight against privatisation and Bromley Council. We've laid down in the road together and held up buses for workers' rights, linked arms and joined hands to stop workers not on strike from crossing a picket line and getting to work. And it's really important that we support the striking workers in their fight for their rights. And we have to remember that they are us and we are them. Hold on, where are we? And, you know, what we need to do, and this is a message to all the unions, is we have to link the industrial struggles together with the grassroots campaigns. Unite, fight, and kick some Tory arse, because it's by fighting together we can win together. We must support the campaigns against the anti-trade union laws. The government are gunning for the unions like PCS, RMT, the Bakers Fast Food Workers Union, who have been effective in their strike action and have won disputes with their struggles. And, we will struggle to win our fight and our rights without the unions actually fighting back. And Deepak promised the unions this: we are with you, and we promise you we will be out on the picket line with you at every dispute in the fight for your rights. But we say to the union leadership today, with the recent announcement in George Osborne's budget of 4 years of pay freezes, now is the time to run prolific fight back on pay. And to Len McCluskey, Dave Prentice and Paul Kenny, stop talking about civil disobedience and direct action on big marches. Take a leaf out of our book, organise it and do it. We want to see prolonged, coordinated strike action from you and wave after wave of civil disobedience. If we can do it, you can do it. That's how you won in the early 1970s. You need to strike, occupy and mop Cameron back. If we can hit the government back with our direct actions and methods of civil disobedience, anyone can do it. And you will empower others to do the same. And it's really liberating when you hold up a bridge, I can tell you. And it's with fire in our bellies and determination in our hearts that disabled people have been the spearhead of resistance against this government these past 5 years. And no matter what the government have thrown at us in the way of nasty policies, called us vile names like scroungers, we have responded to them and got right back up, got back out on the street, raised our voices online and hit them back with our actions. And this is a message to David Cameron and Ian Duncan Smith. Be afraid. Be very afraid. Because you never know when Deepak and all disabled people everywhere will hit you next. Oh, and a message to Ian Duncan Smith. Hope you stocked up on wet wipes and underpants before your credit card got taken, because you're going to need them. And I will end with this. I'm really proud to be fighting alongside my rebel brothers and sisters at Deepak. We are rebels and warriors. And it's a committed group of individuals that can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Thank you for having me speak to you today in solidarity. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Geraldine O'Halloran, a deaf campaigner and co-founder of Stop Changes to Work campaign.
Okay. Thank you for asking me to speak today. I was waiting for the others to speak first, so I'm up second. I was here last year, so it's about a year, and I just think of so much has changed in that time. But then also, not much has changed for us. When I came last year, I was talking about Stop Changes to Access to Work, the campaign that we'd set up, which is now 20 months old. It was always intended to be a short, sharp campaign with the aim of encouraging, particularly deaf at that time, people to get involved and to say, stop making these cuts to access to work budgets. And now 20 months on, it feels like this is going to be a very long campaign and that we've got a lot more work to do. Our campaign, Stop Changes, we've had a few really good wins that I think are worth mentioning. We was able to influence the Select Committee, who accepted many of our recommendations. We recommended that, I don't know if you remember, there was a cap on interpreters only working 30 hours a week. We managed to get that scrapped, the 30-hour rule. We attempted to take some judicial reviews, just to force them to listen to us. I think we've had 4 cases so far, around access to work, and all those individuals have had their resources back fully reinstated. So our members have been able to influence the new interpreters union that was established, which is really important for us in the deaf community. Our interpreters now have their own union, so can fight for their rights. And that also means that will influence our rights too. It means we have the rights to good quality, skilled and professional interpreters, and so we are able to do our jobs. The campaign has actually made more deaf people aware of what's going on and understand that there is a problem. And like Paula was saying earlier, it's encouraged more people to get involved. And we saw that at the anti-austerity march when 200 deaf people came along. There's more to do. We had the new budget announced, and access to work, they are continuing to try to cut resources. So we are told now that we're professionals, that we can manage our own access to work budgets, but if we don't use our resources within a month, then they'll cut it. Deaf people are being phoned to say, you're not using your resource, so we're going to cut it. But we're managing our budgets. So maybe 1 month we have less need for interpreters, but the following month we'll need more interpreter resources. I mean, we're smart enough to manage our own budgets and to know what we need. The new minister, Justin Tomlinson, I tried not to remember his name, very smugly announced that there was a £3 million underspend. Well, we know that because disabled people have been suffering and have experienced cuts, and that is why there is a saving. Deaf and disabled people are experiencing a lot of stress, more health issues, more mental health and anxiety issues, and a lot of people are scared to carry on. We've been fighting for the last 2 years, and a lot of people feel like giving up. What worries me is as I get older, we have to work for longer. We can't give up work. And I can't give up work until I'm 67. Will I have a job, or will I have the resources to continue in that work? That's what I'm worried about. And for younger people, well, I'm really worried about them. So I'm worried about the older people because I want to carry on working for as long as I can. But I need to have the resources to enable me to do that job. I don't know how I can forward plan at the moment. So there have been some changes. We've got the campaign, we've got a march coming up on the 26th of September, and I really want to see you all there. I'm going to remember all your faces and make sure you're there. And there's a leaflet somewhere. If you can't find it, then you can go on our website, Stop Changes to Access to Work, and all the information is there. My colleague Ellen will try and make sure that information's available as well. There's also the development of a deaf politics group now on Facebook. And that's an opportunity for deaf people to get involved in the debate, which is really good for us. Because I feel like we've been held back by our fears for too long, and it's time we got assertive. What's been really important recently is we've got some new blood, new members joining our group who have brought renewed energy, including Ben, who's in the audience today, and Paul at the front here, Nikki, Ellen, and myself. Because I feel like our energy was waning a bit, but we've now got new people who have re-energised the group. And that gives us an opportunity to revitalise. So what's next for us? We know there's 12 billion worth of cuts, which are going to affect us all. So, and we'll find out exactly what that means in the months to come. But before I finish, I need people, like Paula said, we need people to feel angry, to get involved. Stop accepting things. We need everyone here. Maybe if you've got colleagues who are disabled, I don't know, maybe you've met them, or maybe you don't know their personal details, but if you think they're using access to work and it's being cut, talk to them, find out about it, ask how they can be supported, and ask how they can get involved. Deaf and disabled people, we're all professionals, we do jobs. We need to carry on receiving the resources to enable us to do those jobs. So I want you to help us to defend our rights to work. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Liz Carr, an actor, stand-up comedian and disabled activist, speaking as part of the Not Dead Yet campaign.
Actually, let me hold on to it. It's never good to be introduced as a stand-up comic when you're about to talk about assisted suicide. The two don't often go together. I try, I'll be honest, I do try. I know, controversial. So I would say I've been involved with disability politics and campaigning for 25, 30 years. And I think one of the biggest threats to disabled people at the moment is our very existence. I have never, ever lived through a period where I think we've been so vilified and hated, and I think that that comes out through government policy. So when I tell you that Not Dead Yet, and many of my colleagues, in fact I think all of my comrades here on the panel today, that we are against assisted suicide, I'd like to explain why that is. But let's put that against a backdrop. Now, we've already heard some of this, but the backdrop to, but isn't it about the right to choose, Liz? Isn't having the kind of death you want about the right to choose? Well, let me just say something to start with. I'm not religious. I'm not anti-choice. I am pro-personal autonomy. But I'm still against assisted suicide. Not as such, but against legalising it. I'm against changing the criminal law, and I'm against putting it in the hands of the NHS, particularly at this time. I love the NHS. I would not be here without the NHS, as I don't think anyone else on this panel would. I love them. I want them to be funded and supported and offer the treatments that people need. I do not want them to become our killers. So, we currently have cuts to access to work. We've just heard that. We currently have an ILF, an independent living fund, that's just been closed. Responsibility for social care. And that's your basics. That's getting up in the morning. That's going to bed. That's being fed. Maybe. Forget even having a social life. That's been handed over to local authorities, to social services departments who were already struggling. We have an NHS, as I say, that can now, for people with life-limiting conditions and different cancers, cannot offer treatments that people need because they're too expensive. Welfare reform has led to people killing themselves because of the pressure of work capability. People are being told that they're fit for work 6 months after they were pronounced dead. Disability hate crime has never been higher. We're hated at times, and that's quite hard to take that on when you're that person, or in that group, in that community, from those people. My people, as such, can be that hated. That's frightening, that's scary to be that person. So amongst all of that, do we have choice? Do we have choice in our life here and now? Because I don't see the government or the media rushing to help us, to assist us to live. And until I see that, I will not campaign for assistance to die. I can't. We can't. And in a way, I'm here to plead with you. And I'll tell you why. Because do you know who our political allies are? Do you know who you make me, or people make me get in bed with? The Tories. The religious right, who believe in a right to life, and Conservatives. Because traditionally, Labour, or any political party, is pro-assisted suicide. Please, do not make me get in bed with these people. Right? Because this is a deeply, deeply political issue. David Cameron, I sold my soul a couple of weeks ago, more than I have in the past, and I actually wrote to him in a personal capacity. I know that he watches Silent Witness, and I thought, well, let's try it then, maybe. Dear David, I know you like Silent Witness, and I know you're opposed to assisted suicide, so come on, promise me we're all going to be safe as you close the ILF, as you cut access to work, as you cut welfare benefits. Promise me we'll all be fine. And of course what he said was, yes, he's opposed it, but it's a personal conscience issue. This is about death. This is about actually state-sanctioned death. Because let me just explain. An assisted suicide. So suicide is legal. Any of us in this room can end our lives, okay? Now, often in the media, we're led to believe that this law is for those that can't do it themselves. If you can't physically do it yourself, you would not be eligible under the law that the government are putting through. That's euthanasia. For somebody to actually do it to you is called euthanasia, okay? So this is about people being able to do it to themselves. So if you can only blink your eyes, you cannot use this law anyway. But we're not told that. So this is for people at the very end of their lives, we're told. Okay, say I. Every single campaigner that we have seen in the media, I'm going to name some. So we have had Diane Pretty, we have had Debbie Purdy, we have had Paul Nicklinson, we have had Paul Lamb, Tony Nicklinson, we have had recently Jeffrey Spector, front of every newspaper, the Last Supper guy. Not one of those people has been terminally ill. Not one of them. Not one of them. Because these bills are apparently for you've got to be dying within 6 months. Not one of them has been terminally ill. They've all been disabled. So when people say to me, this is nothing about you, Liz, shut up and butt out. This is not about disability. It has everything to do with disability. But this is about pain. This is about people living in pain. So the UK law is going to be based on the Oregon law. Oregon, every year, do statistics as to why people wanted to use the law. The 6th thing out of 7 is pain. The 6th reason. The first reason is loss of autonomy. Well, let me just say, loss of autonomy is something that we're living with all the time. We're living with it because our social care has been cut, because of our NHS services have been cut, because our access to work has been cut. We know about loss of autonomy. And I also understand about grief and fear and being terrified of pain and the future. So I'm not taking this lightly. I don't lack compassion. What concerns me is that when we have a law that allows certain people, that is ill and disabled people, to use it and to have a medically assisted death, we're sending out a message to those people. Because I tell you, if anybody else in this room who's not disabled or doesn't present as disabled talked about wanting to end their life, they would be offered, hopefully, probably not because of cuts, but you'd hope they would be offered suicide prevention. When a disabled person or an ill person asks for it, they're encouraged. I promise you they are. So much so that we don't even call it assisted suicide. They call it assisted dying. But it is somebody who wants to end their life, and that's fine, I get that, people do. But then do it. I don't mean that to sound callous, but be very careful before we change the law and we change the role of the medical profession. Because that's what will happen. And doctors, before I end, just to say that on the whole, doctors don't want this. Disabled people, on the whole, don't. Of course there'll be disabled people. Some in this room, I'm sure, go, no, but I want it for me. Can I just say, I don't mind who wants it. I'm not opposed to people wanting to end their life. It saddens me as a human being that people feel that. And I hope we can offer people that support. But I actually think that people want to end their lives because the independent living fund has been stopped. And their alternative is to sit in an incontinence pad in shit, which is what they've been told by their local authority. Or they are terminally ill and they would like to die at home. But do you know what? There's not that support. There's no hospice for them where they live and there's no treatment. I understand why you'd want a quick way out. So why don't we, because this is a political issue and this is an economic issue, and we're fools not to think and see it like that. Because why don't we plough the money into ensuring a good death for everyone? Because surely that's what we want. Who in this room doesn't want a good death for themselves, even their enemies, no matter their loved ones? We all want that and we all deserve it. So let's, the campaigning that goes into this to allow a few people, a few very articulate people who are asking for the right to die. It's not the right to die, it's the right to be killed. Be very careful about that. So please, I would say, disabled people feel very strongly about this. Many of us do. Not Dead Yet has existed for over 20 years. It started in America, we've existed here. We campaign, we go outside Parliament every time they debate it. Not least to just go, there is opposition to this. Because when you're faced with 80% of the population saying this is a good thing, it's not easy to say, hold on, this will affect so many more people. But laws exist, or should exist, to protect the majority. Can we honestly be sure no one will die under an assisted suicide law who doesn't want to? That they won't be put under pressure? That they won't feel they're a burden because their family are having to look after them? Can we really say this? I don't think we can. And I read a quote the other day and it really struck me, and so it was, if the assisted dying bill is passed, some disabled and terminally ill people's lives will be ended without their consent through mistakes, because it happens, subtle pressure and abuse, because no safeguards have ever been enacted or proposed that can prevent this outcome, and not in this political and economic and cultural climate. We're going to be outside the House of Commons, outside Parliament, on the 11th of September, when this bill, for the first time in 18 years, is debated in Parliament, in the House of Commons, MPs. If you feel strongly about it, even if you're thinking about it, please talk to us. It's complicated, it's a painful and difficult issue. I don't take it lightly. But please do talk to us. Please, if you feel strongly enough, become part of DPAC or Not Dead Yet, write to your MP or join us on the 11th of September. I'm from Not Dead Yet. Thank you so much for listening.
Our final speaker on the panel is Rob Punton, member of Birmingham Socialist Workers Party, who stood in the election as a candidate for the Trade Union and Socialist Coalition, and a veteran Direct Action Network activist.
Well, follow that. I'm not sure. Well, comrade, follow that, but I'm not sure I can, but I'll give it a go. There is an urban myth that disabled people are born disabled. This, of course, is nonsense. Some of us find we need greater support to live and contribute to our communities. What disables us... Hang on. What disables us is when this support is reduced or removed, when we face obstacles that others don't. Where's it going? Sorry about this, people. We have a technical problem. No, it's 3. Sorry about the technical problem, people. I am an ex-recipient of the Independent Living Fund. Unless you have been living on a desert island for the last 2 months, you will have seen me on several well-publicised demonstrations fighting to save the fighting to save the ILF and other essential financial support mechanisms that enable me and others with similar support needs to participate in our communities. I would like to share a story which focuses why we did this. My PA was discussing what we did at his other workplace when a mother of a child came up to him saying what we did was usually equally for her son and his generation. This alone makes it worthwhile. The Independent Living Fund helped me to do many things in the last 27 years. However, as I'm here as an SWP party member, I better concentrate on that part of my life. I always seen myself as a socialist, but never contemplated before joining a political party. About 3 years ago, I went to a People's Assembly meeting in Birmingham, and Bridget Parsons calling me and convinced me to sign up. And since that moment, my life and the life of the SUWP has never been the same. The first meeting I was invited to was in a pub, typical SWP. I had no quarrel with that fact. I did, however, have a problem that it was inaccessible. I must admit, on the whole, they took my rantings very well. Needless to say, the meeting place was moved. A theme that was repeated not so amicably when we took on the Birmingham People's Assembly, but we talked them round too. A result of me joining both groups was that I quickly learned the source and model definition of disability, and I got a much greater understanding of the obstacles that other working class oppressed groups encounter. So much so that I started calling myself a social justice campaigner, not a disabled campaigner. I must have done something right, because I was honoured when Birmingham SWP asked me to stand as a Tusk candidate in the 2015 general election. This was an eye-opening experience and is another subject for another talk. All I'll say is that I got a small glimpse of how Eleanor Marx must have felt when she took on the male-dominated world of 1880s English establishment. The politicians debating alongside me started off seeing me solely of what I am, so my impairment wheelchair, rather than who I am. They all got a rude awakening. What I saw was a group of individuals living under the illusion of power, their illusion and ours. This talk is about disability resistance, and Paula has eloquently and passionately described our direct action approach. As individual groups, we resist the government and their austerity measures. As a party member, my plea to the party and all my brothers and sisters in the struggle is to work tirelessly within groups, both inside and outside of the party, to come together and fight as one. Then there will be the government resisting us, a much stronger position. Actions speak louder than words. Direct action sounds loudest of all. The time for action is now. This is the only way we can build a revolutionary movement and achieve social justice for all working class citizens of our nation. They say cutbacks, we say cutback, cut that good back. Thank you, people.
Manchester no tour one bit, no tour at all. Unfortunately, tour commit soon come at conference. Now conference will stop conference, no conference. Need people there. Need stop conference happening there. They're welcome here, basically. Welcome conference Manchester, stop tour conference. Definitely. Come here, stop conference there and come here in Manchester and welcome Manchester, but they're top conference totally. Won't forget Tory hate Manchester ever. Tory hate Manchester because then huge speaker come here back basically. Won't come Manchester because one Tory remember long time basically. I won't come stop conference totally. Stop conference basically. Manchester welcome. Please tell me how to do that. Because obviously the panel here are experts.
So, the People's Assembly have called a siege of Manchester. So there's a massive demonstration on the Sunday, but there will also be actions on the Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. This is the 4th of October. Every single Tory in the country, Ian Duncan Smith, you know, Cameron, every councillor, every MEP, they are all coming to Manchester, and Matthew is inviting, and we're all inviting you from Manchester, come to Manchester, not just for a march, because we need to do civil disobedience, and we don't know how to do it, but we do know that you people have shown us how. So there's plenty of buses and bridges to get involved with. Thank you.
Nice one. Well, Les might be a stand-up comedian to a lot of people, but in our house, you're the person that reads my little boy a bedtime story on CBeebies, so thank you very, very much for that. A little bit starstruck here. Right. I'm from Disabled People Against the Cuts in Sheffield. This year, so far, I have a daughter who was born deaf and was operated on and now can hear a lot better, and I have partial hearing myself. So within our home we use British Sign Language. I've learned British Sign Language to level 2, but I can't afford to learn it to any higher levels than that. But I have become the kind of unofficial interpreter at demonstrations now locally, which is fantastic because, as we talked about earlier, being deaf can really isolate you from the community as much as having a physical disability that stops you from accessing things. So it's really fantastic that a couple of deaf comrades now are coming regularly to anti-austerity meetings in Sheffield. So I'm also going to apply for funding Together Level 3 and further courses, hopefully a bursary from Unite Community or something similar. So far in Sheffield this year, DPAC have had a local scrap work capability assessment demo march, a no to sanctions demo and march with a rally, obviously attended by Greens, Labour, Tusk, SWP obviously, as well as post-election local austerity demo, which had about 1,500 people attending. I've spoken earlier about how we support industrial actions. In Sheffield, we've worked hard to support local strikes, and among other things, we have joined the GMB recycling workers on the picket line, and also attended the demonstration in Rotherham for the sacked NUJ rep Phil Turner at the Fight for Phil demo. And if anyone doesn't know, he has actually had his job reinstated, so that's absolutely fantastic. People power, right? And obviously we still support the South Yorkshire Freedom Ride travel pass campaign. Disabled people have had their cuts to their travel passes completely reinstated locally, which is fantastic. And we're still campaigning alongside the pensioners in our region to get their rights reinstated. As part of anti-austerity campaigning, we also we unite against fascism with other community members, against the scapegoating of immigrants and the rise of right-wing groups, because as well as them being Islamophobic, anti-BME, homophobic, transphobic, misogynistic, the list goes on. These Nazis are also anti-ableist, and this is something that we must never forget, any of us. They are anti-disability, and that is why we have taken back the black triangle from the Nazis that they gave us in the concentration camps. We own it, and they can't hurt us anymore. As well as uniting to fight the Tories' despicable cuts, we're also uniting with other minority communities, because none of us are to blame for the mess we're in, and nor should we have to pay for it. Unite and fight. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Helen, member of the SWP in Cardiff, and I'm a social worker working with disabled children. And I just wanted to raise, I suppose, the issue of young people who are disabled. And our team, we are called the Disabled Children's Team, not Children with Disabilities, because we fully see that it's a social issue and that the children we work with are disabled by society and not by the health issues that they have and their physical limitations that they might have. It's the society that are disabling them. But something that I'm finding it more and more difficult as a social worker is the cuts, the lack of services available. I work in transition, so I work with teenagers, and I'm supposed to support these teenagers in becoming independent, in preparing them for adulthood, and there's nothing to support them with to become independent. And then when we're talking about the Independent Living Fund for adults, when they're children, they're entering the adult world with no support at all, and actually a high majority of them won't actually get any support from adult social services. And I just wanted to raise the issue around young people who are disabled and how more support can be done around that.
The next contribution is from Roger Lewis.
There you go. Thanks, comrade. Thanks, comrade Roger, Brixton SWP and DPAC National Steering Committee. I think it's absolutely right and fantastic that we're meeting here today to celebrate the successes that DPAC has achieved over the last 5 years, really, but certainly including the last year, as outlined so brilliantly there by Paula, that's given such a sort of inspirational lead to all of those people out there who are fighting back against austerity and want to see more of a fight back taking place. And absolutely we need to congratulate ourselves on that, but we also need to go back to what Liz was saying and remember, as we all do, of course, the urgency, the deeply serious urgency of what we're facing and what the consequences of what this government is doing are. It's literally a life and death struggle for many hundreds of thousands of us. And we've got an important and vital role to play in that. I don't think any of us here should underestimate the influence that DPAC has because of what we do in the wider struggle out there that's building and developing. And we can use that struggle, as we have done, very, very effectively, most importantly, through initiatives like Unite the Resistance, where we're linking in with other groups of workers who are frustrated about the lack of a big fight back on the industrial front by the big unions, but want to see more. Our support for the UK care workers in Doncaster, our support for the Lambeth College strikers, the Ridsley workers, more recently, as Paula was talking about, the Bromley strikers against privatisation and cuts over there, and building solidarity and giving people the inspiration to take the militancy of our movement onto the picket line and into the industrial, because that puts the pressure on the trade union leaders to stand up and do more. And we can make a difference in that. And that's why people were talking about Manchester coming up. We've got to be at the centre of helping to build that and making sure that that demonstration, that series of demonstrations is not just angry, but it's militant, and we're at the heart of it, bringing all of these struggles together. We have to do that. And we can play a very, very important role in that. It's frustrating in the People's Assembly sometimes, but people will have heard with the reception that Liz got when she spoke on the stage in Parliament Square on June the 20th. Exactly how much support we have out there. And then 3 days later, with that fantastic militant action by disabled people against cuts activists in the House of Parliament. But we have to remember that this is only about disabled people against cuts. This is about fighting back against the Tories and defending the rights that we've won since the 1970s and 80s. But we stand for bringing the rights and equalities of all disabled people forward from that and into a world where we have full equality and the full freedom of liberation to be able to make the liberated choices that Liz is saying we can't have under this rotten system that divides us in every way that it can. And again, our politics, our movement, the social model of disability gives us an opportunity to do that in a way that a lot of other movements can't do, because we understand that it's not us as an identity which is the problem here. It's the problem of this capitalist society which oppresses all sorts of people and seeks to divide us against each other. And that the real strength of our movement is we can unite against those divisions and across those divisions. We unite with migrant workers. We unite with job centre workers. We recognise they're not the problem. It's the DWP and the system behind it. That's what the Tories fear. And that sort of movement can inspire other groups of workers to link together so that we build not just a movement that can take on the cuts and beat this vicious and vindictive government, but can actually take that movement forward and to inspire us to look at another sort of world, the sort of questions that are being asked in Greece and across Europe at the moment, where people are saying another world is possible. It doesn't have to be driven by greed, by profit margins, by dividing people, rich against poor, of a class-led society, but another way is possible. We have to be part of that movement, and the fight against austerity, the fight that we're leading in the cutback is the start of fighting to build that movement that we can take forward from here. So let's go forward in the next 12 months and see what we can do leading up to the demonstration in Manchester, but also continue the discussions about how we take that forward to build our own full equality and to actually change the society which is free of the oppression that we face and gives us all of the choice and control over our lives that we all want.
One thing I need to say, don't look your disability, use smart. People, they like us, they can't read, but you can read. Use smart, don't look your disability. Sister, you got my brain, because the things you was telling, that's the things I'm going down. Don't look your disability, sister. Don't look that human being. I lost one of my friends about nearly 5 years ago. He did born disabled, but he had a car accident. Then he ended up go to the hospital. The doctor said the two leg have to go. They end up being disabled. Then I was the one have to take him out shopping, whatever. Then after a little while, because I had depression, but I get moved from London. There's no one to look after him. Then he ended up suicide, burn the house, suicide because people keep laying me down. My friend, sister, stay strong. Stay strong. Don't suicide. You go a long way. Then I know you will make it. If the government lay you down, we're there to back you up. We're there to fight for you people. That's why we need to stand up for them. Thank you very much for
He's not even talking. He's not even. Do both.
I'm from the northeast. Last year, my husband died from cancer, and you talked about death earlier, so I'm sorry. It feels a bit raw. I want to talk about interpreters and the lack of information given from the NHS and support. We didn't get it. My husband didn't understand that he was actually dying. There was no support after the interpreters' meetings with doctors. Doctors didn't understand how to explain that he was actually going to die. Thank you.
The next and last speaker is Ben. Yeah. Sort that.
Just very briefly, it's my first time here, so I've received a lot of kind of energy from everybody in the room. So I've met a lot of people, and so I've been given lots of energy, and it's quite exciting, and it's been really nice. So I'm not in work, I'm at home, so I do feel a little bit isolated. And I think it feels like everything's against me. So when I'm meeting people here, it feels more relaxed and, more positive. And so that's really nice. So I just wanted to thank everybody, really, for working really hard and campaigning and fighting. And, thank you very much.
I'm going to invite speakers to sum up if they would like to, starting with Rob.
I'll just be very brief and say that for me, as the man said, we are proud. I'm actually proud to call myself a disabled person, not because of the obstacles that I overcome, but because I belong to a strong culture and a strong community. My final messages to you, to everybody in this room, is if you know anybody, your neighbours, your family, please go and speak to them, because we need them to join us in the fight, to stand not behind us or in front of us, but by our side. Thank you.
Next, Liz, to sum up.
Thank you to all the contributors. I know we didn't have time for everyone that put their hand up, but thank you. You never failed to make me emotional, so thank you for that. Because it always makes me think when we all woke up on that horrible 8th of May, what a shit day that was. And so we need weekends like this, and we need more of them. And that I just feel like already, and I've only been here this afternoon, energised, and I hope you do too. So thank you for the support. This isn't about one group over another group, or one issue, or one oppression trumps another. We're all in this shit together. I'm not in the way that Cameron talks about it, all right? And I'm sorry I wrote to him. I'm sorry. But he's my new best friend now, anyway. He's not. God, no. Fuck off. He's not. But thank you. Anyway, thank you. Keep supporting us, and likewise, we will be there for you too. So thank you.
Next, all right. And finally, Paula, to sum up.
Part of the work I do with the Mental Health Resistance Network, I have to tell you the government are now bringing in forced treatment into job centres for mental health claimants, with the Improving Access to Psychological Therapy IAPT and the Cognitive Behavioural Therapy. And on the 26th of June, because we heard Streatham were piloting the project, we went down to Streatham Job Centre and we occupied it. Because South London and Maudsley Trust, psychiatrists, psychologists and GPs have been supporting this programme. So what I need to say to all of you, okay, there's a great group called Psychologists Against Austerity, and one of them's here who's been a great support to Mental Health Resistance Network and DPAC. We've been working together, but get inside that campaign, and because they're building it up. And yesterday, for one of the reasons why Denise isn't here, is because Ian Duncan Smith has dropped a hint about insurance, that you will have to take out insurance to pay for your benefits and healthcare, and he's looking at the Singapore model. So, and I have to tell you that we looked at the cuts over 5 years. It's not 12 billion they're taking off the welfare budget, it's 56, right, which is pretty much half the budget. This government are going for privatisation of the welfare state, complete abolishment of it, and abolishment of our NHS. But I'm going to say this. We, all of us together, no matter what we believe in, no matter what we think, need to get out there, get active, tell as many people as possible what's going on, because these services are not just for us today, they're for our children, our children's children, and everybody else. And you want to look back on it one day and said, I was part of the resistance that stood up and said, no more, enough is enough is enough. And to David Cameron, a message. You know, in 2013, Paul Maynard, a disabled MP, called us that extremist organisation, Disabled People Against Cuts. Well, you know what? I'm not a scrounger, I'm a disability extremist, and bloody am proud to be one. Right? But we've got a stall outside the doors here, and we sell our merchandise to pay for people to come on protests and everything, and that's how some of our brothers and sisters got to Occupy Parliament, was the money we raised. So please do come and buy a t-shirt, and if you want to, if you're a trade union member, go back to union and say, we ought to affiliate to these guys, but most importantly, we should be out there on the streets with them and showing solidarity as they do to us. And to the People's Assembly, okay, please go back to the National PA and say to them, they've seriously got to sort out the access issues on demonstrations and marches, because the one at Parliament was appalling. Rob and I were left on the pavement while all of you were on the grass, and we couldn't access it, which is appalling. And in the march in Manchester 2 years ago, they tried to put us in a metal container and we weren't allowed to march. Well, no one puts disabled people in containers, because we will take the road back, and we want to get involved. But you know what? You can march outside the Tory conference. Well, let's take the floor of the conference back. Let's go in there and face Ian Duncan Smith down and say to him, we're going to get rid of you on the 4th of October. Enough is enough is enough. Thank you.